Canada is furious at Donald Trump and his despicable regime, and Canada is fighting back. Shout out to Charlie Angus, a former member of Canada's Parliament, now a leader of the Maple Meidas, a leader of Meidas Canada, elbows up, leading the way in fighting back against Donald Trump and his regime of gangsters and authoritarians. I want to give credit where credit is due. Charlie Angus recently just went off, calling out the global dumpster fire created by Donald Trump, but how Trump's AI 4chan slop has backfired in Trump's face. And now you see the Iranian regime using these tactics, but on steroids, to corner Donald Trump. A perspective from an international observer, Charlie Angus and others, seeing how Donald Trump is a cornered rat in the Strait of Hormuz and how utterly embarrassing it has become as Donald Trump has now gotten a taste of his own medicine. The tables have been turned against Donald Trump, a weakened little vile creature in the White House, and Charlie Angus isn't holding back. Take it away, Charlie.
Hey there, Meidas Canada viewers, resistors from all over. Charlie Angus here. Listen, we have no idea when the global dumpster fire that was started by Benjamin Netanyahu and Donald Trump will finally be put out. We don't know what the ramifications are for the global economy, or, as I've talked about on this show, the potential for global hunger. But what we do know is that the propaganda, or the slopaganda war, has been decisively won, and it has been won by a fundamentalist theocracy in Tehran who've totally handed Donald Trump his rear end. What we are looking at, my friends, is the first global 4chan war. Donald Trump used the whole 4chan psyche to get himself elected, and now the Iranians have turned the tables on him. So it may be really disorienting for the rest of us normies, but it explains everything about the psychosis that is MAGA. So stay tuned.
And that's how Charlie started off this incredible video. And now I want to share with you what Charlie Angus said. You're going to want to watch the whole thing. Charlie's got the receipts. He knows his history. And this is pitch perfect Meidas Canada at its core. Charlie, what say you?
I think one of the most disturbing elements of the whole MAGA era is this sense of not being able to tell what is real anymore. The debasement of public institutions, the deliberate degrading of the office of the presidency, and the whole notion of engagement with electors. So much of that has been driven by Donald Trump's use of the meme. We saw the meme of Donald Trump as a king flying a jet and dumping feces all over protests at a No King rally. We saw that Donald Trump, when he was so angered that Pope Leo dared stand up to him, came out with this meme of him as Jesus with these weird four-crowned demons above him in the sky. We saw Franklin, the children's book Turtle, being used in a meme to promote war crimes. There he is in an attack helicopter shooting unarmed sailors in the water. The meme has been the driving force of Donald Trump's presidency because he uses it for shock, for outrage, for clickbait, and to supersede the traditional roles of the president, which would have been the press conference and presidential addresses. Now, the meme comes from the site 4chan, and understanding the 4chan culture is necessary to understand Donald Trump. You know, there's a book written by Dale Barron on 4chan. It's called It Came From Something Awful, How a Toxic Troll Army Accidentally Memed Donald Trump into Office. And he poses a question. How did a pornographic anime site transform into the post-cultural garbage heap upon which the great events of our age stood? Well, the answer is Steve Bannon, the answer is MAGA, the answer is Donald Trump. So what is 4chan? So in 2003, an adolescent boy named Christopher Poole set up a website to trade cartoon images, slightly pornographic images of sort of Japanese cartoon characters and unicorns. They were for like the lost boys of the internet. But what happened with 4chan was that there were no moderators, there were no rules, everything was anonymous, and things started to go dark very quickly. 4chan created the meme as a way of shocking, of getting clickbait, of saying outrageous things. They also pioneered what they called trolling. And these are two things that are very key to MAGA. The shock elements of Donald Trump's memes, which he uses to troll people. The false video of U.S. team captain Brady Tkachuk swearing at Canada. We see the fake video of Barack Obama being arrested and dragged down in the White House and thrown in jail. These are all these provocative elements that really come out of that kind of 4chan culture. But what happened with 4chan is really important to understand, is it started off as boys being bad, boys being transgressive, boys trading stupid anime pictures. And then it started to get darker and darker and darker. And one of the pages on 4chan was key for this, that Christopher Poole had actually shut it down twice because it was so increasingly toxic. It was 4chan/Poll/. And on that site, we began to see the amalgamation of deeply racist, deeply misogynist, deeply violent content, where the incels, another cultural fabric of 4chan, these men who couldn't get dates, who were living isolated and living online, began to post increasingly violent fantasies against women, and then they began to act it out. And we had on 4chan mass murderers and lone wolf killers being celebrated. Alex Minassian, who murdered 10 people in Toronto, posted on boards before his murder spree, calling it an incel uprising, and he's been celebrated ever since by that 4chan culture. Brenton Tarrant, who murdered 51 people at a mosque in New Zealand, live streamed the killings. And then has been used again and again and again as a symbol to that 4chan culture. So things were starting to get really dark, and it really started to happen around 2015. So two really key things happened in 2015, 2016. Well, 2016, Donald Trump put his name forward for president. And suddenly all these adolescent shit posters who weren't paying attention to politics became obsessed with getting the Donald elected. And another thing that happened between 2015 and 2016 was the disturbing rise of a global cyber-fascist culture that was deeply embedded in 4chan. Dale Barron, in his book on 4chan, says, in 2015, the notion of a Nazi deeply racist youth movement in the United States seemed unimaginable. By 2016, it had become a reality. And I read this fascinating essay by this woman, Catherine Thorlitzen, who tracked the rise of neo-Nazi and racist hate on 4chan, and she said it was the memes that really drove cyber-fascism. She said the cyber-fascism that's promoted by 4chan relies heavily on memes to express and reinforce myths that are threatening to others. The users typically employ memes to spread ideas and mask offensive, disturbing, and racist material. Wow, gee, Donald Trump. And it says, while older fascist tropes are abundant at 4chan, new symbols and flow signifiers are borrowed from digital alt-right and gaming culture, as well as popular aesthetics, illustrating how memes entail a mixing of images for distributing views. This was very much the kind of thing we saw with the MAGA White House. Let's talk about Pepe the Frog. So Pepe the Frog was one of the early symbols on 4chan, and Pepe was the sad roommate who smoked weed, played a lot of video games, and was just the nice frog. And then as the hate movement started to spread, Pepe became Pepe the mass shooter, Pepe the neo-Nazi, Pepe the racist, and then Donald Trump appropriated Pepe and became Donald as Pepe. And you see in Donald Trump memes, Pepe appearing. Because around 2016, Steve Bannon and MAGA began to take the online culture wars of 4chan and spread them into the larger U.S. political discussion. So for the longest time, these kind of memes and shit posting that Donald Trump was doing didn't make sense, but it was coming from that well of toxicity on 4chan. So why does this matter today? Well, what we're seeing now is that as Donald Trump has become increasingly set in his narcissistic, psychopathic fascism, his memes have become increasingly stilted, and that real fascist social realism. There's Donald Trump with the flag, Donald Trump looking like a leader. Fascism doesn't make for good memes. It doesn't. And then the war starts. And what do we see from Iran? Well, Iran has learned the whole 4chan war big time. So they've been relentlessly trolling the White House. And it's been hilarious in what they're doing, because they're doing the transgressive, crazy posting stuff that 4chan did. They mix hip hop in. They've got this image of Donald Trump as the washed up 80s singer playing the DX7 keyboard, which was the classic pop synth keyboard. But then they have Pete Hegseth as a baby crying, Kash Patel as a drunk, Donald Trump being chased by Lego figures. And if you're going to have a war that's based on clickbait, well, Iran has been winning this war again and again and again. So what does this all mean? Well, it means that we are dealing with an incredibly dangerous, fractured, and volatile world that is being reduced to dumbed down trolling and meme and counter meme wars. That the 4chan wars were done by adolescent boys growing up in a world where they were increasingly alienated because of less and less opportunities following the 2008 economic crisis. And now we see this is how a dangerous global war is being fought out in the online sphere. Dale Barron, in his book on 4chan, described the creation of 4chan as a cultural global dumpster fire. Well, now we have a global dumpster fire for real, and it is started by the 4chan president. And where we go from here, who knows?
There you have it, everybody. Make sure you all subscribe to Meidas Canada. Make sure you subscribe to Charlie Angus's YouTube channel. It's Meidas Canada. Shout out all the Meidas Maple out there. Elbows up. Thanks for watching, and hit subscribe, everybody.
Want to stay plugged in? Become a subscriber to our Substack at MeidasPlus.com. You'll get daily recaps from Ron Filipkowski, ad-free episodes of our podcast, and more exclusive content only available at MeidasPlus.com.